Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. Today I figured we would finally make the mistake of trying to start the environmental tech void ore miner, and I figured that justified a slightly prettier chair, though I still don't have a permanent solution for these episode starts. So I guess let's jump right into it. So as we've discussed in the past couple episodes, the void ore miner is kind of a giant rabbit hole, and we probably should start with why do I want to build the void ore miner? So the way the void ore miner works is it's just another thing that generates ores, and it generates more variety than the actual ex nihilo sieves do. In this case, we can get things like ardite and cobalt out of an overworld drill, as well as mana-infused ore and platinum, and a few other things. But the important part is it also pulls up the litherite that we needed to make it in the first place, as well as the iridium we need for the next tier. So the whole purpose is basically just get more ores and build better ones to get even more ores and more variety and more and more and more. And you can put a specific type of laser lens on it to target a specific type of ore, generally matching the color of what you're trying to get. Now, as mentioned, making it is kind of a giant rabbit hole because of these litherite blocks right here. Because this takes 9 of these to make, so you need 36 to make this. However, you also need 24 of these structure frame tier 1s. And these also take litherite, 2 of them. So you actually need 48 more, resulting in needing 84 of these litherite crystals. Now, as you can see when I mouse over to litherite, it does say it can be replicated with UU matter. It's just significantly more UU matter than I am producing right now. So I'm either looking at having to do these the hard way or significantly cranking up my power generation and scrap into my matter fabricator, and I'm not quite ready to do that. So to make these though, you need to take a terrestrial artifact, put it in the thermal expansion fluid transposer with some molten endurnium, which is the lead platinum alloy combined with resonant ender, to turn it into a litherite crystal. Except this, however, requires a whole lot of empowered crystals, because keep in mind we need 84 of these, which means we need significantly large numbers of empowered crystals. Thankfully, I already did this. I took the tedious part of this episode out already, but let's show you what went into doing this. So down here, you can see I have my empower set up, and you can see that I have parts of the floor ripped out so you can see what's going on under it. And you can see under it, I have a bunch of item conduits because I went and automated this. If we look inside the chest, you can see I already have the very large number of blocks that I needed. And when you do this, do them in blocks. They require a ridiculous amount of power, but far fewer materials because it uses the same base materials to convert a block as it does the singular item. And what I mean by that are the items surrounding it here. Of all of these, the void crystal was actually one of the worst because it required these blocks of black iron, which was a rabbit hole of its own. So to make these in the induction smelter, you need blocks of Invar combined with tough alloy, which thankfully we have tough alloy, but it just requires making tons and tons and tons of this stuff, which is, you know, the fun of this whole process. So coming down on here, the way that I automated it was when I physically using Ender IO conduits because I don't need them to be fast. What I need them to be are filtered on both inserting and extracting, at least out of the center. So inserting, we have one of each of the blocks that go into the center that I wanted to use. And you want it to have the extract filter in place to remove the empowered one, because if you don't have this in place, it'll yank the unempowered one out and kill the process. If we go into these side ones here and look at the filters here, it's the same sort of thing where I have one of each of the given items for each of the crafts for the types of blocks that I was making. So the block of black iron or the rhodochrosite or the beryllium dust, stuff like that. One for each of these pedestals. And with that setup, I would extract them out of this chest in these first 5 slots, and it would fill them up. Make sure that if you're doing this and you're not using a dedicated empower for each specific type of crystal, that you only do one type at a time or you'll potentially break the layout. It's pretty fragile since the way I have it set up, it can allow any of the given items in here, so black iron or beryllium inside that pedestal, which would break the craft. So don't do more than one set at a time unless you're going to specifically set up layouts for each one. Anyhow, as mentioned, I have these blocks, so the next step is to turn these into terrestrial artifacts and to start pumping molten endurnium into them. So let me get onto that step and I'll get the litherite made. And with that, we have 84 litherite made. That was tedious, folks. I don't even want to get into how long this took. I mean, time in the bottle was maxing out the power, so it was draining it too fast because my cables behind the walls aren't big enough yet. I just haven't gotten around to replacing them because that takes effort. I've already made the cables, I'm just lazy. So now we can actually go make the void miner. That said, we probably should discuss the other materials that go into making the void ore miner, because we've got the litherite, we've got a block of diamond, that's easy. The other pieces are this diode, a laser lens, which can be any type, and 2 interconnects. And the diode is pretty simple. That's all stuff we've seen before. That's also where the iridium comes in, where we just need 4 pieces, so we have plenty. Skystone comes from meteors. If you haven't found them yet, you probably should, since that's where you get your 82 press plates. And the rest of this is stuff we've seen before. The interconnect, however, is relatively new looking stuff, but thankfully is not really that complicated. It's just blocks of black concrete powder, which is vanilla Minecraft, and some iron. And these connectors are just a lot of tin and aluminum brass and signalum, which we can thankfully make easily now. So we need 2 of those, and then the laser lens is just glass. Tier 1 finished, except it's not that simple. I mentioned it before. Because if you go in here into the description for the void miner, well, we need 24 structure block frame 1s, 24 structure panels, 2 laser cores, and a laser lens. Still, we know the laser lens is at least easy. The laser cores are a little more complicated, but still pretty easy because we've already made the connectors. Just again, a load of tin. And the structure panels are pretty easy as well. We just need a bunch of these connectors still, which, well, again, a bunch of tin. You might notice a recurring theme that tin is what gets used heavily in this. And then the structure frame, which is where the litherite comes in, as well as more interconnects, which is more tin. I've got to learn to look at the recipes a little more closely. Because if we go and look at the interconnect, some of you were, again, possibly screaming at me that I didn't notice this down here where it's just 1 piece of black concrete, as opposed to 4 and a bunch of other stuff, although this does make 4 of them. But, I mean, why wouldn't I just make 1, guys? 1, I only need this, unless I need a modifier component for something specifically. So, I'm not smart sometimes, guys. I don't know why you listen to me. That's on you. And as you can see in my toolbar, I have all of the parts we need to make the void miner now. There's one last thing you need, and it's the assembler wand that I have in my hand. The assembler itself isn't too hard to make, it's just obsidian and another piece of litherite, so that was easy. The one thing I did underestimate when making this stuff is the sheer amounts of signalum that you need. It's like 6 stacks, maybe 7, to make all the pieces. I mean, thankfully I already have the production set up to handle that in large amounts, but it was still way more than I counted on. I'm not great at math. I just did not count up all of those pieces that require 4 at a time. Alright folks, and I think this is about where we're going to call it for the day, because while we made all the parts for the void miner, putting it together is also a fair amount of work yet. And we've got to make sure that it doesn't massively impact my power grid, and that we've got to actually process everything coming out of it. So that's another day's task, I think. But we at least got through making everything involved with that, which was not an innocent amount of work on its own. So, as always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.